It is good to be back. This is RGT. This is the Westerly VR race number 4. Got a new little title screen here. You know what you think about that. Maybe I should add a little musical like guitar sting under that. So Westerly VR race number 4. This is a British club, I'm pretty sure, that put their like weekly race on RGT. It's been super fun to just jump into these local races that people have taken online during coronavirus. This one is really short. It's about the length of the normal Crit City races on Zwift. It's like 10 miles. It'll probably come out to about 20 minutes, which that's a bad distance for me. For some reason, my 20-minute power, I always lag right around 20 minutes. You can see there's still a couple people dropping into the pin as we take off right here. This start is super fast. I think we had like 60 pre-reg. I'm not sure how many showed up on the line, but really well-attended race. This is one of those like weekly staples on RGT that it seems like all the big guns are kind of coalescing around this one. If you've watched my other RGT videos, you'll definitely notice a couple names at the front. And I thought I was going hard. I was going almost 500 watts and getting dropped there. So I had to make sure to really stay on the gas here. But also, I didn't want to be that person who shoots from the back to the front 4 or 5 times and then gets dropped. So trying to get in and sit in, but also not get caught out. This is also the race. I did this one, I guess it was 2 weeks ago that was the first one of these I did, and got myself just absolutely dropped. I was attacking in this portion, and you can see here we're doing 33 miles per hour, which those of you on the metric system, that's over 50K an hour, 55, 56K an hour. So we are trucking right here. We are moving fast, even if I'm not the one taking up the reins and doing work. We're going very quickly. And I think this group probably represents about half, maybe a third or a half of the field. So right here, we're tipping onto this downhill, and this is where I got caught out a couple of weeks ago. So I did a couple really early attacks, and I think it was that exact downhill, but one of these descents early on, I had come back from an attack. I was sitting on the back of the group, attack, come back, try and get some rest, and I just wasn't fully engaged in staying right on the wheel. And the group kind of tipped over one of those little downhills, tipped over the knuckle of one of those little rises, and I was maybe 2 or 3 bike lengths off the back, and I just lost the wheel, and the group had so much momentum, and I'm a lighter guy. I'm like 61.2 kg, 135 pounds, thereabouts. I actually weighed myself today. I was 133.5 before I did this commentary, so I'm actually carrying around like an extra, couple 0.2, 0.3 kg in the game, but I'm not going to blame my performance today on that. I don't think adjusting my weight would have helped me any here. I do generally leave it on 135 pounds, or that's 61.2 kg, because that's just a good average. I weigh myself pretty regularly, and about the highest I ever see is 137, and the lowest is 133. So any given time. Also, normally when I get on the bike, I weigh a pound or 2 more than when I get off the bike, just from glycogen and also sweat. So 135 is a good average, but I do weigh myself pretty regularly. We're going hard right now, going fast, and I'm just trying to make sure I'm not getting caught out, because this is a super fast, super motivated group. And after my last experience in one of these getting dropped, not paying attention, I'm really trying to stay engaged today and really trying to make sure I stay in the wheels. This one, you'll see, though, it plays out way differently than the 20-minute Zwift crit equivalents. You'll see people coming off the back, and the big thing here is that brakes are able to go away and come back in a way that it sort of doesn't happen on Zwift. So I see this guy go, and I'm just going to try and cover it, try and slot in. even some of these where I'm not necessarily trying to be like the one to chase it down if it looks like a really serious move. What I want to do is get the group moving and get the group working. And if I can just be one of the people that sort of filters into the gap between the peloton and the person who's off the front, I want to do that. Now, I don't really want to go solo. This, as I said, 20 minutes is kind of a bad time for me. I find that at around the 20-minute mark in like crits or cyclocross races, I always have this point around 20 minutes where I'm questioning all of the life decisions that have brought me to this point, begging for death. And then if I stay on it, if I keep my wits about me and pace myself correctly, I come back around and then I have a really strong, like probably around 45 minutes, I start feeling really good, which is perfect in a crit because hour-long crit, generally the crucial stuff is happening around that 45-minute mark. A lot of times if a break is going to go that's going to stick, that's when it's going to happen. If the field is getting shredded down to a smaller size, that's when it's going to happen. And same thing in a cyclocross race. Like, those things sort out pretty early a lot of times, but if something is going to happen in terms of like someone's going to blow up and you're going to catch them, or you're with somebody that you've been battling and you need to make a move, that's sort of the sweet spot. But something about my power curve, 20 minutes is just not good for me. But that's part of why I've been trying to do more of this and more time trialing, all that stuff on RGT, because, or RGT, Zwift, whatever. But I've been trying to work on my steady state power and my 20-minute power, because I want to address my limiters, as they say. Like, it's better to, especially in a time when there's no racing, get better at the things that hold you back rather than continuing to train things that are already your strength. So here I am doing a 20-minute race, trying to go across to this solo rider who just did not appear to be coming back. So I thought maybe I'm the one to get this going, get it brought back. And yeah, I just want to, that was kind of ideal for me, even though he's going to go up the road a little bit. I was really hoping that some other people would filter around. And honestly, what I'm really hoping for in that situation is that I'm going to draw out a select group of a few survivors, and then we're going to get going, because I really don't want to be in like a 2-man group from this far out or something like that. If that's the break that's going to stick, I want to be there, but I would rather just kind of continue whittling this field down and get to where we can, sprint from a group of maybe 5 or 10. That would be my ideal scenario. So, I'm going to play the hand that's dealt to me in terms of, whatever happens, I'm going to go with it, but I'm also not going to force the hand of a scenario that's not good for me. So I'm not going to try and go solo. Melville is really motivated today, so I knew this move was pretty serious, but also we're kind of stringing out right here, so I figured we're gonna, he hadn't fully snapped the elastic, I didn't think. But as this one starts to go out, I realize I got to get across to it, and probably on this 4% drag is the best time for me to go across to it. So I'm looking up here and seeing that this is about to flatten out before too long, and we're on like the steepest part right now. And being a lighter guy, if I'm going across to the move, I need to do it on the ramp. That's where I'm going to be able to take the most time in the most, I won't say most efficient manner, but the best way for me. And if I can get latched on, we're golden. So here we are. It's topped out. We're still kind of, shuffling around, but I noticed that is Jasper Paraday, who's gone. I still may be pronouncing his name wrong, but Jasper is super strong. It's probably Jasper now that I think about it. He's Belgian. But Jasper is super strong, so I know that's serious. Can't just let him roll away, but also don't have a huge attack in the tank, especially not on this negative 1.4%. I'm not going to go that fast because I'm so small, so tiny, and I really am feeling on RGT that as much help as my weight gives me on the uphills. It's a burden on the downhill. But I want to make sure that this group continues taking turns and going fast. So I'm going to just make sure that we keep moving. I'm going to keep trying to shuffle to the front and not gap these guys off. But I know, having raced with especially Jasper a few times, Jasper is the one who soloed away, or he definitely was the protagonist in my stage 2 video from the women's tour. He may up to this point be unbeaten on RGT as well. I definitely saw some people talking about that, and I'm not familiar with his entire oeuvre, his entire palmarès, but I think he might be unbeaten. So I'm feeling good right here. I'm realizing that we got some of the stronger guys. Definitely Melville recognized the name. This appears to be a lot of the stronger guys. The one that we don't have is Naguru, and he was one of the ones who was really lighting it up early. But we're going to try and keep it pretty speedy here. Definitely not going to let Jasper just roll away right here. If we can get together and get organized, this could be the break. And while this is not, exactly my ideal scenario with the group this small, there's not a ton of draft available. I'd still definitely rather be in this group than back in the field if this is going to really go. So it does right here feel a little bit like Jasper's either going to go all or nothing. Like, he either wants to be solo or he wants to go back to the field, which, might hurt us in the long run. But as it stands right now, we got a pretty big gap back, 150-something yards back to the field. I do kind of wish that was in time rather than yards, just because even yards don't make any sense to anyone, even someone who's familiar with the imperial measurement system. Yards are, I don't know. Like, I guess I can picture the length of a football field, but outside of that, it's not really helpful. A time check would be a lot more helpful. So this is where this group kind of falls apart, though. We don't have anyone who's going. Melville's doing it right now, but we don't really have a good rhythm, and we can't really find a good trading pulls at maybe 5 watts a kilo. And we would really need to start trading pulls very efficiently if we want to hold that group off that's behind, because this is a quick race. We're only a little bit over halfway through, but I'm still thinking we might be clear right now. So if we can tighten this formation a little bit up and start taking some smooth pulls, I'm down. I'm willing to work for sure. It is hard, and I've mentioned this on a lot of videos, but it's really hard on these online platforms to get a group like this, especially this size of group. It's just hard to get working together really smoothly, because it's hard to signal like, hey, I'm done with my turn, you pull through. And it's also hard to stay in that sort of like batting order that you get in the real world. In real life, you get in a pace line and you're kind of just watching the wheel, or really the shoulders of the guy in front of you, and you're kind of keeping that gap. You're just doing the power you have to keep that gap. But it's a little bit harder to manage to stay like perfectly single file on a platform like this. Like, see, he just went around all of us. Really, in real life, it would have been better to kind of tack on to the back, and Melville's kind of rolling off the front a little bit. We're just not keeping it super tight, so we're all doing these little surges, and then the surge makes you fly past the group. It's a little bit easier if you have voice chat, so that's something I would like to see on one of these apps at some point, would be like some sort of proximity-based voice chat where like everybody within a certain number of yards can hear each other. Something like that would be super helpful. And notice I just said yards, feet, I don't know, whatever, but meters. But people who are close to you can hear you, and people who are not close to you cannot hear you on some sort of voice app. I have done some of the WTRL time trials on Zwift, team time trials, which are amazing events. Those things, here's a plug for the Zwiftcast, if you haven't checked that out. It's a lot easier when you're all in a chat and you can say, okay, I'm going to the front and I'm going to do 2 minutes. You do your 2 minutes on the front and then you say, I'm about to pull off, who's coming through? And then someone else can vocalize that they are going to pull, and you keep that going. That makes it much, much easier to keep the momentum going. So you can see now what has happened here is the peloton has swallowed us back up, which in a real race would be completely unspectacular. But I will say in an e-race, especially on Zwift, you really don't see a breakaway going up the road like it does in real life, getting established, getting a significant gap, and then getting brought back. It's normally a race of attrition where as the groups break up, you really don't have anyone going across group to group, and you really don't have if 5 people get away together, those 5 people are staying away, and the group behind is probably also shredded. If you watch Zwift races, there are a lot of solo moves that come right back, or there's kind of just breaking the field down into these smaller and smaller groups, but you don't have as much of that effect that you get in real races where someone attacks, a couple other people cover it, they get a certain amount of gap, and then the strength of the peloton behind brings them back. You sort of reset, reshuffle, and do it again. So I think that speaks really highly of one is just the mechanics of RGT, that it worked like that. And 2 is also the fact that as these sort of e-race platforms develop, I think they're going to become more and more like real racing as real tactics, or even maybe game-specific tactics, are applied. It's going to start to play out more in a more dynamic way like real races play out. And I think you're seeing that happen in gravel. Like 5 years ago in gravel races, 10 years ago, when gravel was new. I guess the first gravel stuff I did was probably 7 years ago, around the time I first started racing cross. But you see that you have seen it in gravel. When gravel was new, you saw these sort of, it's a big peloton and it just sort of slowly breaks down, and there's not really much tactics. It's just kind of everyone pedaling as hard as they can, as long as they can. And at some point they come off the group, and that just continuously happens. But, as pro riders and ex-pro riders and various people from other disciplines have come over to gravel, and teams and alliances have formed and all that stuff, I think you see more tactics at gravel races. And it's not exactly like a road race because the drafting's not the same. Ooh, and here goes Jasper. Just absolutely blistering attack from him, 10, 11 watts a kilo. That's like a full-blown finish sprint. So I'm trying to just sort of get into this lineup here and see if I can surf the wheels up to him. Really what I should have done here is go all in right after this corner. I should have right here just gone all in to try and slingshot across to him, because they're really not that far at this moment. And I think if I put in a good 10 watts a kilo, I could have gotten clean from this group and maybe gotten up to them. But that was my mistake. My heart rate's 178, which it's been maxing out in the mid 180s, so I'm pretty well pinned at this moment. But yeah, like, this is what you see in a real road race. The brake goes, the brake comes back, a different brake goes. People try to chase. Like, this is more how races play out. Man, I should have gone across with Melville right here. I think he might have made it, and that would be a good wheel to be on. I know that he's strong. Maybe I try. Maybe I'm identifying that right now. Honestly, this is one of those races that, like, it's fresh in my mind because I just did it, but it's also hazy because, 181 heart rate right now, 182. So when your heart rate is this high, your brain really doesn't work. And going back and watching these races, I learn a lot because in the fog of battle, you don't really have the clearest picture of what's going on. Like right there, I thought we were gonna get them. I thought they were gonna come back to us, and so I kind of eased off. And when I kind of eased off, they immediately got several seconds. And then maybe this is where Melville gets there. I think he may have gotten there. And yeah, that's the ball game. But yeah, this is what you would see in a real race, is like sort of brakes go, brakes come back. Eventually one sticks, but this mechanic is something you almost never see on Zwift, which again, I enjoy Zwift. I rode Zwift for 2 hours today. I like Zwift, but there's a reason I keep coming back to RGT for the racing. I really think there's a lot here in terms of the mechanics and the platform. It's really fun, and it's a good simulation for real life, even if it is only 20 minutes. But yeah, you're seeing in gravel races now, you're seeing more like tactics and games being played, and like someone sitting on the back of the group and people have to try and ride them off the wheel, or saving it for the sprint and then getting caught, stuff like that. And I think that's just a factor of as a discipline or a type of racing gets more like codified and finalized, it's going to become a lot harder to just power away, because people are going to be savvier racers. So you can't just go as hard as you can the whole time and win. Someone is going to realize they can stick your wheel for 99% and then go at the end. Which, by the way, is what I'm trying to do right here. I've kind of resigned myself to, I am sprinting from this group, so I don't want to let anyone in this group get away from me. I almost do right here, but I think I bring it back. I don't want to let anyone in that group get away from me, but I also don't want to be the one doing the pulling too early. And this sprint, this was a terrible move for me. We're on a 5% downhill, and I'm a 61 kg guy trying to go right now. I really should have made them pull me onto the flat and not gone all out until, yeah, there's really not a good flat spot. But downhill sprint for a 61 kg guy, that's the next thing I got to crack. Why can't we get an RGT race where there's a slight uphill drag to the finish? Seems like all the sprints have a corner or a downhill really close to the finish. But here are my numbers. Did almost 1,000 in the sprint. Not bad. 282 average, which is pretty solid for me. But yeah, I'll throw some links up here. Check out the I got into one of the new Zwift routes and made a little quick and dirty video. I'll put that up here, and another RGT race. Thanks.